Hello. If you saw my YouTube video recently on the Johnson Su bioreactor composting, you'll have seen that I commented upon how spectacular the results had been using that compost for my sowing this year. This is the last little bit I've got left of my Johnson Su, absolutely brimming with biology, full of beneficial nematodes, bacteria, fungi, protozoans, a few diatoms, absolutely beautiful. And I used this in some compost trials with a peat-free alternative this year. In every case, apart from a couple, the germination and the early growth was markedly better in the, what I'm going to call biological composts. For instance, if you look at my sunflowers, so the sunflowers are doing very well in the biologicals, just one or two shows in the peat-free. Look at my peas, you'll notice that they got away more quickly in the biologicals and are only just coming up in the peat-free. There's about a week between the two. I did some spreads of wildflower mixes just for the fun of it. The tray that had the biological versions in it, I had to plant out. That's why it's not there. That's a different tray. But this is what it looked like a week ago before I planted out. You can see in the biological composts just how much further forward with all those variety of wildflowers the biologicals got away more quickly. Not much change between last week and this week, so I'll plant those out though, get them going. And it's the same with my squashes. So these rows at the back are the peat-free and this is the biological. My rocket, my dill, my lettuces, it's these two front rows here that are in the peat-free. These are in my biologicals and you can see the difference. Down here, my tomatoes, in fact no show at all in the peat-free, and although not brilliant, definitely life in my biologicals. I mentioned two examples where the biological didn't work as quickly as the peat-free. One was my brassicas, so that's the peat-free. They got away quite early. The biologicals were about a couple of weeks behind, in fact, although they've caught up and in some instances overtaken, but they certainly got away more quickly in the peat-free. The second example over here was in my beetroot. Again, nice and healthy, early germination in the peat-free, and you can see in the biologicals only just starting to sprout in places. You'll notice there's quite a few weed seeds in these trays with the biologicals. If you recall from the YouTube video, I mentioned that the Johnson Su isn't a thermophilic process, so you don't reach the temperatures where you're going to kill the weed seeds. But as far as I'm concerned, they're gathering carbon, they're putting exudates and sugars into the soil, so they're doing a job. So for the time being, just let them get on with it. So why in the brassicas and these sugar beets, why in the brassicas and these beetroots are they getting away better than the biologicals? Well, that's because the families that these belong to, the Brassicaceae and the Amaranthaceae, are non-mycorrhizal plants. Virtually every other plant is mycorrhizal. They form an association with the fungi in the soil to help them gather nutrients and water. It's just the way that they've evolved. Nature not wanting to put all her eggs in one basket. So some plants are non-mycorrhizal, but the majority are. And what's happening, I think, is that the microbiome around the seed itself can pick up on the chemistry of the soil, and if it recognises that there are fungi in the soil, then in these families it won't germinate. They're not helpful to the plant. So they wait until the fungi has died through lack of resources, and then they germinate. whereas all the other plants, the microbiome of the seed can sense the mycorrhizal fungi. They germinate quickly, roots come out, and the fungi associate with the roots. So exactly what you'd expect from the soil food web approach to peat-free compost. So, you know, if you want to grow things like beetroot and brassicas, then you really want to be going for a peat-free. I've looked at these peat-free under the microscope, virtually no fungi in them at all, just tiny little threads, nothing compared to the fungi in the biological composts. So yeah, that's been extremely encouraging. It's getting me to think more about my biological compost. So if you've got an opportunity to make your own compost in a biological way, you don't need to do Johnson Sue. There's many other simpler ways, in a sense, of making biological composts, which I'll explain over the next few weeks and months. But I'm also going to gather a few more samples of peat-free composts, get a range of them, and start running a few more trials and see if I find similar results, because based on these results, there's I think your homemade biological compost is the way to go. Anyway, thanks for listening.